2012 who is the sort of middle of the road and not very much changes under this person. How do we prevent, I mean, again, I don't want to think in pessimistic terms, perhaps a wonderful human being will be elected, but suppose this outcome occurs, how do we prevent all this great sort of, anti-government Tea Party revolt spirit from being dissipated because people say, well, one of my people is in now? I mean, how do you keep the flame going? That's a tricky question for either of you.
Well, I would say that, what I said throughout...
Oh. It's Trump jacking sound.
All right, who's the saboteur?
It's Trump! It's Trump!
What I said throughout the campaign was that the Republican Party is an empty vessel unless we imbue it with values. So the political parties don't really mean anything unless we give them value. But a committed minority can really give value to a party and tell it and help it believe in something. And I think that as we move forward in the debate, that's where I think we're already having an influence is, there's a Democrat proposal up there. The president says he'll freeze spending at 2010 levels. That adds $4 trillion in debt. The Republicans have another alternative which adds $3 trillion in debt. So we have, I think we hold their feet to the fire and we become that very vocal minority that says we want better. But we can have an influence.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in 2012 we get to decide who the nominee is.
You came out swinging in your first couple weeks as a senator. You came out with these bold proposals.
Yeah!
$500 billion in cuts, which is pretty bold, as we just said. Now compare that to the Pledge with for America, or whatever they called it, which was only $100 billion. They couldn't even live up to that. I think it's at $32 billion now. Like they can't even get that far. You're setting a standard for what a serious budget-cutting conservative Republican should be. You're talking about the party has no value unless we imbue it with value. Do you see that happening to the level of $500 billion in cuts? Do you see any support?
Yeah, but I think it's different who you talk to. If you talk to the 87 new freshmen that have come in, I think they're much more eager for more significant cuts. They can have an influence on the leadership. The leadership, the problem is, for example, like on raising the debt ceiling, the leadership capitulated from the very beginning and said, we have to raise the debt ceiling. Instead of saying, even if you're going to do it, we should have significant budgetary reform. And so they got nothing out of it because everybody knows it's a foregone conclusion they're going to vote to raise the debt ceiling. So we got nothing out of that. But I think the freshmen are much more cohesive and we have a much better chance there.
Definitely improved, and I am optimistic that our votes are going to be better. For instance, we had at least a token victory this week with the help of 8 freshmen in temporarily defeating the Patriot Act.
Yeah!
But I try to be realistic, and Rand works real hard at being optimistic, and sometimes, that's a challenge. But I am optimistic that things are doing better, but I'm not very optimistic that we have the people in Washington, like you said, if we have 1 or 2 people, what's going to happen? We just don't have a vote. I see it as momentum. The momentum against us has been there for a long time, and to change that momentum is a horrendous job. But where I look for the positive side is your momentum. Our momentum is building. Our numbers are growing. The enthusiasm. And even academicians are getting recognized these days. What's going on?
Yeah!
But I think we will win, but I don't think we're going to... I don't want to discourage Rand about all his efforts, but the budget's not going to be balanced. Unfortunately, they're not going to cut much. The Republicans, they said 100, and went down to 40, and they said, well, we had to cut here, and then they increased 2 or 3 things. They actually increased in this proposal. So that can be pretty discouraging. So we need to have you keep pressure on everybody, and it will have to do a lot with your pressure on the members. The new members, they might have forgotten some of their pledges that that they signed on to. So let's not let them forget them.
Yeah!